What's up, guys? It is episode 1 of Starside Lounge. That's right, we're going official for the Destiny.Bungie.Org podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us for our kind of pilot episode last time. And thank you even more for listening again, if you made it through that one. With me, I have NCSU Duncan. What's up, man?
I'm still trying to think of a catchphrase.
You stay on that. We also have Claude Errera.
How y'all doing?
Who is uncomfortably close to his laptop right now. And we have Mr. mastrbiggy.
Hello.
Yeah, that's why I'm still trying to think of a catchphrase.
And I am, of course, GrimBrother One. So thank you guys again for joining us. And we are fresh back from E3. I think all of us got back in some sort of capacity within the last week. Most of us either got back, I guess, on Friday or Saturday. I know I got back on Saturday morning. But it was... To say that it is an adventure is almost a disservice to the craziness and shenanigans that were contained throughout our trip. And I think that's where we should start. Just kind of want to go around the metaphorical room and catch up on what you guys thought were some of the funny moments, not even necessarily stuff specifically related to, you know, the conference itself or the games or anything, but just the craziness. I mean, I know me, you know, I think we had landed, I landed, and I think I was in LA 94 seconds before we hit an In-N-Out burger, so that was good, but it was certainly crazy on through. And Claude, let's go ahead and start with you, big guy. What are some of the memories that stand out to you?
Goodness gracious. I had a really good time the whole week. I just felt like...
That's surprising.
That's surprising.
You seemed so depressed.
I told everybody how much I hated them. It was great. It was really like a lot of fun. No, I really enjoyed the after hours stuff, the like hanging out and drinking too much and watching people pass out. That was fun. I love the Rotunda. That was a really cool show and extremely high tech in terms of number of cameras involved and just the sheer scope of the money spent.
Yeah, for real.
The Rotunda was neat just because that's not something that you can really experience elsewhere. Yeah. Like the on stage, like the demo, the gameplay stuff. Obviously, we'll get to play at some point, but that Rotunda thing, that's pretty unique to E3, I think.
Well, it's so like multi-sensory too, because you had the visuals, you had the sound, you had the vibrating floor, you had the best part. And I want to set up fans in my room for this. But when the ship lands and the Guardian gets out and that breeze that just kind of blows in from the engines and, you know, your hair moves around a little. Oh, that is chill inducing. That was absolutely awesome. Best part of the, other than Marty's, beautiful
They didn't use them in the Destiny, display, but there were also, fire little things that shot out fire, and the Blizzard guys used them for the Diablo stuff.
Yeah.
Forget the Oculus Rift. You know, I want a USB fan and flamethrower to plug into my console to really immerse me.
That's a good catchphrase.
The next generation.
I'm Daniel, and forget the Oculus Rift. Just give me a USB fan and some pyrotechnics by my keyboard.
That seems like a really bad idea.
Probably. After this week, it should seem like an especially bad idea. Biggie, what did you think, man? What were some of your favorite moments?
Really, all the stupid shit that happened to us.
But that doesn't narrow it down.
Yeah, well, screw you guys.
No, I totally understand what you're saying.
Anyway.
But our listeners don't, so you should explain.
On the way, or when we were going to see the Xbox conference, I had to run in with a cop.
Oh, that.
That's right. As a matter of fact.
What?
You were very disrespectful to this cop. He told you so.
I was very disrespectful. There's free valet parking, and they had managed to close off the inside lane, which is the lane you need to be in to get into the valet parking thing, for buses only. So I thought maybe I'd go into that lane to get to valet parking, and kind of pulled up slowly to a cop because I didn't want to drive fast by him. And he kind of slammed his hand down on the hood and told me to roll down the window and grilled me for being just a terrible person. And that was really
not an exaggeration, actually.
The problem was Biggie couldn't explain why he wasn't a terrible person.
And we weren't helping.
I was doing my damnedest not to laugh, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
I was ready to just jump out of the car and run into the Gallon Center. Like, you guys get arrested. I'm watching the press
Really close to the
conference.
front door.
So anyway, he said, get out of this lane, and made me go into oncoming traffic. And so that guy really did not like me. And then I pulled back into the bus lane anyway. So
it's not the only time
that he pulled into oncoming traffic is because it was on his side of the car. So I wasn't at risk until something really fast hit us.
Let's not forget the time you drove on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not the only time we were driving into oncoming traffic.
There was no traffic that night. I don't know what you're... Oh, my God.
Claude
nearly
ended DBO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Death.Bungie.Org.
No, come on. Levi and Mike, and there were tons of people left behind. We could have...
It wasn't even 50% of the admin team, It would have been a terrible blow, but...
It's no wonder Claude has been preaching redundancy so much more in the past year, too.
Well, when he starts driving down the wrong way of the road...
It was late, and I thought I was in Australia.
That sums up
I actually have no excuse. I really don't understand why I did that. I don't...
It was only for half a second. Until I said, "Hey, Claude, we're
supposed to be on the other side of the road."
I don't want to pester you here, but you might want to drive on the right side of the road. Thankfully, that was about as exciting as our car adventures got. I mean, we did get to experience LA traffic a good time, at least once or twice.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad. I still like, the DBO away team hurtling down the freeway, fixing server problems on a tethered laptop.
Oh, Jesus.
As we're mobile.
Yeah, we were the equivalent of a DBO, low flying satellite, basically.
If I hadn't been so stressed that the server had gone down, I might have actually really enjoyed that, because it's pretty amazing to sit in traffic on an LA freeway and actually be, on the internet.
Fixing a server in Connecticut.
Right.
Or wherever that server was. Somewhere else.
That server was in Connecticut.
Europa.
For all I know.
Well,
I think the time lag would have been a little bit out of our control, out of our what we could deal with.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, just overall the extracurricular stuff. We really could spend an entire podcast just on that. I mean, everything from the freeway internet to the before and after parties for things to late night trips to Subway and 7-Eleven to Cards Against Humanity
to you spending $20 on a double bacon cheeseburger and a bottle of water.
Oh my gosh! I should have just eaten the $20. It would have been healthier for me, and it might have tasted better. The food trucks were redemption for that. So thank goodness for that. But now,
don't eat at the Compass Cafe. If you go to E3.
Never again.
Yes.
You just lost your credentials for next year.
Just
say, here's this.
So we had a lot of.
You think
actually listen to this?
This is true. So all four of you, just nobody call the E3 credentials department, because otherwise we're going to have to print out a whole bunch more articles to. Just ask Duncan.
That's a good story.
So we had a lot of definitely a lot of adventures with the side story stuff, but of course there was some sort of conference going on, and Monday was really the kickoff. And it's funny that Monday, I don't know if it was our busiest day, arguably our busiest day, definitely our crazy run around
drinking day.
Yeah, at least Claude's least sober day.
Yeah. Which also doesn't narrow it down a lot, but still.
No, it does.
So we had our conferences. We woke up bright and early and actually beat a lot of traffic, surprisingly, to get to the opening conference of the day, which was the Xbox One conference. Duncan, what are your impressions of Xbox's conference? What did you see? What did you like? Anything you didn't?
Well, I'm pretty sure my eyes still have like a slight green tinge to everything I see, because that
every photo we took there, yeah,
it was super green. But that was I thought that conference was pretty cool. I mean, that was my first E3, conference or even like big presentation thing ever. So I was, just amazed at everything I saw, especially when a freaking sports car rises out of the stage floor amidst a huge cloud of fog. That was pretty amazing. They sold a copy of Forza 5 then, I can tell you that. But I thought the Microsoft press conference was great. It was all games. They mentioned Connect in passing, and they didn't.
And I actually think they meant the word Connect, like CONNECT.
Yeah. Well, they did have like the voice command for Project Spark.
for Spark. Yeah,
but that was really about it. And then TV, they didn't really mention at all. I think the only talk of TV I remember was when Buddy Ross mentioned the Halo TV show.
Yeah, really. I mean, the only thing that you really could come close to thinking of as an ancillary type thing was the Twitch integration, which really, what's funny, is like so under the radar and was one of the biggest and most impressive things that they announced. And I think it was hilarious that it was just really kind of glassed over. And I agree actually with everything you're saying as far as it just being games. Everybody complains that it's Usher is singing again, and an adolescent girl is scratching an imaginary tiger, and someone is jumping and doing a workout, and there's a musical. Like, there's all this. This literally was like, hey, we're Microsoft. There's a lot of green shit. Games, Twitch, games, bye. It was really solid. And what's funny is, had this been any other year, people would have just been praising their name in adoration because of the style of press conference, but they couldn't get over that initial hump of some of the downsides or some of the supposed downsides to the platform as it was announced. So we'll get to that later on. Biggie, anything that you had specifically to take away from the conference?
In terms of being what people have been wanting for years, which is get rid of all of your extraneous stuff and just focus on games, I think they did a really good job. They opened with a really strong game, Metal Gear, and they closed with Titanfall. And that was the right thing to do. I was really disappointed, I guess it doesn't matter now, but that they did not comment on their DRM policies, that they just kind of brushed that under the rug, swept that under the rug. I think that needed to be addressed then, because it had been such a nightmare prior to E3 and during E3. So that was the one thing that was missing for me. Otherwise,
I gotta disagree with you on that. I thought that it was as solid as it was because they skipped that. I felt that they had gotten all that flack ahead of time when that information was released, and during the press conference, they focused on the games. And that's, to me, that was sort of, they almost came back from this place where they'd lost the fight before they even started.
It's what everybody kept complaining, it's not about the games. It's not about the games. Why don't you just make a conference that's just about the games? And then they did, and people are like, well, you have other problems too. Let's talk about those.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
The games are important, but people after the conference were still asking questions. Like, you can watch any of the interviews. Like, can you please talk to us about what family sharing actually is? Can you please tell us? I mean, they could have spent 5 minutes having bullet point presentation like they did with Xbox Live. They said, now everyone can use one gold account. They could have done that for their DRM. Like, here are the benefits of our policies. They could have done that, and they didn't.
That's true.
Yeah, it was a lot of games, but it was games with that lingering asterisk that everybody was wondering about. So
yeah, I mean, it didn't ruin the conference, but that would have been a good opportunity for them to. But again, now
and
it
I
doesn't
also
really
think
matter.
that, and I do agree in kind of a certain aspect to this, that the downfall of the original plan for the X1 was related to that. It was largely Microsoft's kind of inability to broadcast the right message. It's like it's like getting a car advertisement and telling you all of the things it can't do. It's like, hey, check out this new car. It can't go 200. It doesn't have 8 gears. It doesn't, you can't do this without, but not saying, hey, it has this. I saw some interviews and some stuff with engineers who are not PR people afterwards, and they did a better job of explaining the potential that the platform had. And so I do agree, I think, in some ways that they, even with a great press conference that was all about the games, that they still missed out on things that they could have said that really would have nailed and solidified their entire idea and their entire structure and what they wanted to get out there as far as the message. Claude, any particular games that you saw during the Microsoft press conference that tickled your fancies?
Well, Titanfall obviously was a pretty spectacular show. I wish I'd made it to their booth. I wish I'd made it through that multi-hour line to see the demo.
That was a rough line to navigate.
I believe it. Sunset Overdrive looked really fun. Gosh, no,
it was surprising seeing Insomniac and Konami, Metal Gear Solid, on the Xbox stage, with knowing that later that day we'd see Bungie on the Sony stage.
Yeah.
I kept telling everybody it's a bizarro E3.
Yeah.
But
it was very reversals. It reminded me a lot of we started to see that when Final Fantasy started debuting on the PlayStation, when it had been under Nintendo for so long. And I remember people having a very similar reaction. Like, oh my gosh, this is a jumping ship thing. What is this? But yeah, it definitely reminded me of that. Now speaking of Sony, we're going to fast forward to Sony's press conference, which was very interesting. What's funny is Sony's press conference, it was bizarro E3, because all Microsoft did was talk about the games and came out smelling somehow, and Sony talked more about TV and movies than they ever have before, and they were the second coming of Jesus Christ, after their press conference, because they did what Biggie suggested and just threw in some bullet points. Apparently, that's all you have to do if you want to win a press conference. Just throw in some Biggie bullets, and everything is going to be fine.
Mr. Master Biggie.
Mr. Master Biggie bullets. Double M, double B, and then we're fine. So let's start, Duncan. What were your impressions on the Sony end? And we'll skip Destiny because that's cheating. Because obviously we love that. It doesn't mean that Sony wins because we saw Destiny, because that's a multi-platform anyway, and that's what we were there for. So let's say, aside from Destiny, what'd you like about Sony's presentation?
Probably the open bar before it ever started. That was pretty awesome.
That was good.
But
the open bar and the ring of infinite food.
And meeting a bunch of DBO Bungie people was pretty cool too. But as for the actual conference, obviously the moment they said no DRM for the PlayStation 4 and the entire place just sort of erupted in cheers, that was really crazy. Seemed like
you continued to make the point after the fact that they weren't really saying that. They were saying no DRM on the console side, but they didn't say anything about what individual companies could do.
Yeah. Afterwards, thinking about it more, I sort of felt a little disingenuous on the part of Sony. Like, oh, we're not going to do it, but maybe the publishers will. That's not us. So it seemed to be a little closer to what the Xbox was doing anyway.
I think Sony, after like the fourth thing they said, Sony probably could have said anything. They're like, no DRM, yeah, you can play used games, yeah, don't have to check it online, yeah, we're gonna kill all the kittens in the universe, yeah. I mean,
PlayStation Plus allows you to play online multiplayer. Yeah, wait, what?
Wait, what?
Well, that surprisingly didn't get the boos I would have thought it would have gotten. Probably people were so hyped at that point.
Yeah, that was after, and it was like the last bullet point on this slide, and they kind of moved over that pretty quickly before anybody realized what it meant.
What they were being to, right?
But I did really like the Sony press conference of how they had a lot of indie games and had the creators of those indie games like all up on stage at the same time, like playing their games. I thought that was neat. But I still think overall, like Xbox had some smaller games as well, and just had more exclusives, more bigger games that I was interested in. But it was really cool seeing all this talk about Sony supporting indie developers and Microsoft not doing a great job on it. So that was neat.
Yeah.
The screen was really cool as well. I mean, it kind of... I know I've already talked about the big rotunda screen at Activision's booth, but Sony's press conference, was that times 50. It was a really cool theater experience, just having this giant wraparound screen with all these visuals on it. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, they did some cool stuff, and they used them pretty interesting, like where they would have, the multi-screens and then multiple developers playing various games, and then they would kind of highlight them up on the center screen, which is cool. It is just neat, coming from the perspective of always having watched these things, streaming live from, internet or something like that, and then like seeing it right in person. You get to kind of see the underbelly and the wizard behind the curtain, which is very cool. And neither press conference was without its technical hurdles. We had the soundless presentations of Xbox, and while Xbox announced that Twitch TV was built in, Sony just had Twitch demos. Because multiple games, and including actually Destiny, had some hiccup issues. But I think what was the worst one, if I'm not mistaken, was the Assassin's Creed one.
Oh yeah, for sure. Was
pretty bad. I felt really bad for the guy that was up there, because it's like, man, that is not his fault. You've got a face on fire when you're up there in front of all those people. Well, gazillions of people.
How he handled that,
absolutely.
Playing, even though he didn't like try to walk away. They didn't kill it. He played through it.
Yeah, and what was really bad about the Sony one was that those technical problems, like I'm sure had something to do with the the video stream or all this equipment hooked up, and not the actual PlayStation itself, but the way it looked on screen, it looked like the PlayStation was having trouble running the game, was
exactly
was hiccuping. Whereas Xbox's the sound cut out, but everybody goes, "Oh, okay, it's just the sound." They'll restart the video and maybe it'll work this time. There wasn't really any thought that, oh, well, maybe the PlayStation is kind of buggy or had this game at least.
What was nice though was that at both conferences the audience were very patient and supportive. Like they would cheer and.
Oh, the best one was during the Microsoft press conference when the Crimson Dragon demo came on, and there was no sound. The audience just started Foley artisting. It was like, it was just sound effects and it was really, really funny. All of these green people doing sound effects all at one time was pretty hilarious to watch. Now, after the conferences, the show actually started. The next day, we'll save Destiny for last. Let's do real quick, and we kind of covered it just a little bit, but anything else that you got to have hands-on time with that you really enjoyed? I know I turned into 13, 14-year-old kid again and was loving playing some Killer Instinct. That was my big, oh, yes, thank you kind of moment in the Xbox press conference. And so that was really cool to get my hands on Jago and Saberwolf again, and definitely looking forward to seeing more of that. And also playing some Forza 5. Was really great. Not only just because the game is fantastic, but getting my hands on the X1 controller, having holding the PS4 controller, I'm like, okay, this is finally almost as good as the 360 controller. And then I held the X1, and I'm like, oh well, Microsoft said, oh, by the way, those goalposts have moved again. It felt great. The triggers, the new individually responding triggers are fantastic. Playing Forza under braking, just getting that emphasis and the feedback on the left trigger was just ridiculously great. And I can only imagine how it's going to be to play a shooter on there. So it's going to be really, really cool. But Biggie, let's start with you. What were some of the games that you really liked seeing on the show floor, or that you maybe got some hands-on time with? Anything stand out to you?
The only game I played was a PC port on PlayStation 4.
Blacklight, wasn't it?
Yeah, which I didn't really like, but I just wanted to feel the controller, and I thought it felt a lot better than the older DualShocks. We got to check out Titanfall on the last day. We got in line with an hour left, and we were the last ones to get in, so that was awesome.
I expected Deech to come around the corner and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you guys, we had a problem, and we just can't let you in."
But I mean, the funny thing is, even though we're at E3, I had no idea what was announced and what was going on. So when
I remember getting back home and I was like, "Whew, back from E3! Can't wait to catch up on all the E3 coverage."
So it's really been the last couple of days where I've been able to look at everything that was announced and shown. I think I'm not a huge Battlefield 3 fan, but what they showed of the multiplayer demo looked actually really incredible. They had this massive, I think it was Shanghai, they were playing on, and 64 players on consoles, and they were going up skyscrapers, and the other team was shooting at the support structures, and that skyscraper collapsed, and everyone had to jump off and parachute down. I mean, it looked like a lot of fun. Fantasia, which is a Kinect game, oddly enough, I think that looks kind of interesting. I have no idea what it is, but you get to mix music, and that looks fun. But yeah, I still have some catching up to do. Killer Instinct looked cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. A lot of some kind of odd games showing some neat promise.
Contrast. It's an indie game, and it's coming out on 360, PS3, Xbox One, and PS4. And
Contrast.
It's a platformer. And when you're in your physical state, you interact with the physical world. But when you turn into your shadow self...
yeah, I saw the video for that.
Yeah, you turn into your shadow self, then you can platform on the shadows of the world that are projected against the wall. I think
that's cool.
That looks kind of interesting to me.
Duncan, what about you?
I really didn't play much myself. I mean, I got my hands on Forza 5, but that was only to really get my hands on an Xbox One controller and feel the sort of impulse triggers or the rumble in the triggers. That was kind of neat. And then, I played that Blacklight Retribution PS4 port just to get my hands on the PS4 controller. And I stood in that line because I figured, hey, Destiny's a first-person shooter. This game's a first-person shooter. Maybe it's a good one to get a feel for this controller. That was a mistake because that game had some terrible frame rate issues and wasn't the best way to test it out. But yeah, the controller was nice. I've never been a fan of the PS3 controller, but that one was surprisingly comfortable to hold. I don't know how useful the touchpad is going to be. I think the rumble triggers are a neater gimmick to have, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see developers do something neat with that. But yeah, other than those games and Spartan Assault, I got some thumbs on with, which that game seems like it'll be really fun once it comes out on a platform I own that supports controllers. Because the touch-based dual stick, but not really dual stick controls were interesting and certainly worked better than I expected, but not quite as good as I would want to use for a game like that. Not really precise enough. I had to readjust my thumbs quite a bit, but it was pretty fun. It was neat. This is mostly coming out of my frustration that I couldn't get the high score and win a Windows Phone or a Surface Pro.
By Microsoft.
Yeah, by Microsoft. But yeah, those were really the only games I ever got my hands on. I did sit next to somebody playing Destiny and had to resist grabbing the controller out of Danny Bulla's hands. But
Thank
yeah,
you
that yeah, just goodwill. Let me just throw it out the window.
I was actually really impressed how Spartan Assault, not Spartan Ops, I did it. How Spartan Assault played, and because I get that weird thumb drift as well. But it was really nice. They came up with a pretty good solution for, kind of wherever you have your thumbs is still doable. So it was kind of a odd, mashup of like Halo Wars and Space Marine Kill Team, kind of Robotron-esque controls. But yeah, they did a great job, and they certainly have some bugs to work out before launch. But I mean, overall, I think the concept is really solid, and I'm looking forward to playing a Halo game on my Windows Phone by Microsoft.
You are the only one of us, unfortunately, that actually has a Windows Phone to play it on.
Yeah.
Our friend Tashi has one now.
Yes.
So I've heard.
Yes, he won one.
Yeah.
But
Playing so well.
yeah.
Playing that game.
Other than hands-on time, I mean, we sat through the Assassin's Creed 4 booth demo, which was a lot longer than what they showed on the Sony press conference.
Thank you, Stone Chin, for popping us in there.
Yeah, and a lot smoother in some places, but not without its bugs. But the game looks kind of cool, driving your boat around.
Yeah, I'm a big Assassin's
attacking
Creed
other
fan,
boats.
so I'm looking forward to it.
That was neat, and Titanfall was pretty awesome. And yeah, those, other than Destiny, those were really the only things I saw at E3 to any depth. I spent most of my time loitering around the Bungie booth or hanging around with the rest of the DBO away team. which really is the right way to do events like E3. You try and do everything, and and you'll do nothing.
Well, it's gotten to the point now where, in some ways, because of technology, and sporting events have become like this a lot, where the best seat in the house might just be in your house. And, no fighting for bathrooms or anything like that, or you have an internet connection at least. But E3 and PAX, I know I go. The games themselves are really a second fiddle to the people. That's where I get to see my, most of my best friends, to me, and kind of the extended family that I get to, that I spend time with online all throughout the rest of the year. That's really where all of that cool stuff happens. And like Claude said, it's just a genuinely good time getting to hang out with people. Claude, anything any other stuff in particular that you liked playing show floor?
Well, I didn't actually. I spent most of my time around the Destiny booth and a bunch of time in the Spartan Assault booth. I didn't do very well in Spartan Assault, which didn't bother me that much because I don't have a Windows phone and probably never will.
Nobody's perfect.
Someday it'll come out on something I can play, and then I'll have to work. Yeah,
it would surprise me greatly if it did not come out for other stuff. I don't think they would ignore that audience base, but it makes perfect sense why they would release it first on the Windows stuff.
Absolutely, and I understand that, and that's fine. And eventually I'll play it. But no, I really didn't spend. I watched Duncan play Blacklight. I watched a bunch of people play a bunch of things, and I watched some videos. But I didn't actually get my hands on anything this time around, except for Spartan Assault. So this one was all about the people, as somebody just said.
Yeah, somebody smart.
Somebody smart.
It wasn't me. Okay. So, now the big subject at hand, and the real reason we were there is to find our destinies and other cliches. So, Duncan, you've kind of been a super strong force in leading the way on Destiny information and finding all sorts of crazy connections and from tidbits that Bungie has dropped. So what did it feel like, especially from someone like yourself, from your end, what did it feel like to really just see something tangible with it? And Biggie made a good point in one of the interviews that it left him with more questions than answers, but that was a good thing. So it's not like by any means we had everything solved, but what was it like to finally just see the world tangibly after us kind of pining after these little details and straws for so long?
It was pretty awesome. It was finally neat to get a feel for how close to a game like Halo this might end up, and how different this game they call Destiny will be. Seeing aim down sights and sprint and things like that, and also just seeing how the traveler powers, the magic, space magic, we have to mention space magic. Just seeing how that's integrated into the game, whereas before, really all we had to go on was this is a Bungie shooter. Well, now we're seeing, this is what form this Bungie shooter is going to take. It definitely seemed like this presentation was focusing on it's a shooter, and it's got these social aspects, but most of all, we want to show you that it's this very pretty shooter. So that it was nice seeing that, and we did get a little bit of hint of story and a lot of characterization from the environment and the player models and the enemies and all of that, which was really promising. It seems like there is a lot to pull out of that demo, just looking at the giant colony ships in the distance, and the fallen carrier or whatever that giant ship was, warping
so awesome.
in. The Devil Walker, being from the House of Devils. We finally figured out that the Fallen have multiple factions that might not be cooperating with each other, and so we're going to get different flavors of spider tanks. I thought that was a really interesting revelation that could add to the variety of enemies we see, and add to how complicated the story could get. Complicated in a good way, how much variation instead of just one unified bad guy like the Covenant. Well, eventually the Covenant wasn't unified, but it's interesting to see how many pieces they're setting up just in this short demo, and the hint that there's so much more. I think every Bungie employee I talked to said, if you like this is nothing.
Yeah.
This is just the tiniest slice of this huge game. Talking to Pete Parsons when he said, each destination is 2/3 of Halo Reach. That's just insane. It was really neat. It was a really good experience. Really good slice of the game to see. And yeah, like Colin said in that behind the scenes video, it answered some questions, but raised a whole lot more. So it was pretty cool.
Claude, you being, kind of community godfather to Bungie franchises, this is kind of almost like a new era for you, and you've seen the various communities kind of rise up and not fall, but rise up and then find their time and move on. And you've seen it with Myth and with Marathon and Pathways and Halo, of course. And it's a little different now with Halo kind of continuing concurrently. But what's it like from your perspective and your experiences to be now on the cusp of this new Bungie universe? Especially with the different, when Halo came out, it was a very different landscape technologically with the consoles and the way that gaming infrastructure was set up. And I know that you've specifically mentioned on multiple occasions the integration, the social integration, and still wondering how that's going to work. And that plays a lot into community, and that's what we do. So what are your thoughts on Destiny just in general, but also from the perspective of somebody who's been so heavily involved with community over the past 700 years?
700, wow.
I was really nice to you till then.
I know. It's an interesting question, because it's sort of the first time, I think, since Marathon that I've felt like I didn't have a handle on what the game was at this stage in its development. I've been behind the scenes is the wrong word. I've talked to Bungie people to the point where I got the games before they were out. Not played them, but I got in the sense that I understood them. And I'm not there with Destiny. They are being extremely careful with what they say, and I think that they're doing that because they have a very specific way they want to introduce information to the general public, and I'm as much of the general public as anybody else. And so I do have questions. I never for a minute doubted that they were going to make a great shooter. They've been good at that for 20 years, and I can't see any good reason why they would, start to go bad now. But what excites me about Destiny is this whole concept of, this social aspect, this we're going to make you play with your friends whether you want to or not. And they all talk about it that way, and yet we haven't seen any of that yet. And so I'm really, really intrigued. I'm not worried because,
the people who are saying it are people who have backed up their words with actions for 20 years. But I am definitely seriously intrigued and looking forward to the next reveal, I think. But this reveal by itself was still pretty impressive. The lighting engine was incredible. I was just floored by how good it was in outside and inside. And they certainly focused on the bits that they were most proud of.
The jaw droppers, yeah.
Yeah, but it was. I think across the board they've done a great job of sort of pulling together a huge environment that looks to be fully explorable and is gorgeous, and highly detailed. One of the walkthroughs that we were privy to, Eric pointed out specifically, the tessellation on the rocks and how every blade of grass is actually an object, and how the fallen nest was full of these rich fabrics, and so there's just an enormous amount of detail, and yet the gameplay is not in any way hindered by sort of the display for that, and to me that's a really impressive feat, and they told us, I don't know how many hundreds of times, we're still in pre-alpha. Like that was a big thing. They wanted to make sure we understood. So, if they're doing this well in pre-alpha, it's going to be amazing when it's finished. But it's the social aspect that I'm really interested in, and I'm starting to get a little bit of a handle on how they envision that going, but really not. I'm just as confused as the rest of us, as the rest of you, as everybody.
Biggie, from the perspective of somebody who lives near L.A., it's the only thing I could think of. No.
I'm thrown in the towel. That's why.
The perspective of somebody who is better looking than all of us, what did you think of Destiny?
Speak for yourself.
He was.
Wait, which part?
I'm talking to Jeff.
Oh.
Oh, good Lord. Put the ego away.
Look at my ego.
I've been following Joe Staten, what he's been saying for quite a while now. He's had some tidbits about player authorship, and the story that I experience with my friends is always going to be more powerful than the story that Bungie can create, or that anyone can create, really. So that's what I wanted to see at E3. Unfortunately, I didn't, but I saw a lot of other things that really impressed me, and so I excused them for that, and they still have plenty of time to explain all that. I guess that player authorship is the social aspect that Claude was talking about. But in terms of like technology, just the step up from their last game in terms of scale, the audio, the detail, it blew me away just how far away you can see, like those mountains out there. Those mountains are real. It's not just a painting. And they're not low resolution. I mean, obviously they're not the same resolution as the rocks you're standing on, but everything has this quality to it that's just incredible. What the things that stood out to me the most were actually not so much the gameplay, because it looks like a solid shooter, and I know Bungie, as Claude said, can do shooters. It was all the information surrounding the game, all the hints at things that really intrigued me, that were raising more questions. Like when we were watching the Rotunda showing, Claude pointed out that the ancients had discovered all the planets except for Was it the moon? They had
Mars.
Mars.
And I immediately went to a Bungie guy and I asked him, what is that? And they just smiled at me. And so asking those sorts of questions, and they're obviously planting them there because they want you to start thinking about that, and then not getting the answer because they like toying with you, that was pretty much the highlight of the show. I had a lot of questions like that. In terms of what does this mean? What is that? What is this? What's this symbol? And I think maybe Claude said, knowing smiles is what we got most of the time. But yeah, the shooter aspect of it looks great. I'd like to point out the animations, actually. There's a small scene where you get to see the Cabal in one of the trailers, and the way they move around, just the weight of them, they look like characters.
Is that where they run and like slam the shield into the desert?
Yeah.
I totally in love with that form as well.
They feel like they're in that environment. They feel like real, tangible characters.
The sand is moving beneath them. The wind is whipping around them. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, just the presentation of the game and how immersive it is, even though I wasn't playing it, and how believable everything was. That was the highlight to me. It's really rare that a game, actually, I don't think a game has ever done that, where I'm not playing it and I can get immersed and I find the world believable. So that's my takeaway, really.
Yeah, I definitely echo those, and that I might echo that maybe the most. That's what really got me about Bungie games. Period. And it's kind of the standard I hold a lot of other games up to as well. And some games do it pretty well. The Mass Effect series did a great job, I think, with that, with really having this. You really felt like you were in the world everywhere you looked. Had kind of like this common universe stamp to it, like it was all cut from the same cloth. And Halo has that, and Destiny definitely has that. And I think that combining that with what they have told us about, man, if you guys like this, like Duncan, like you said, they mentioned, if you guys like this is nothing. And you are seeing a sliver of, just this huge, vast universe that they're already planning out. I think, Claude, you mentioned it a second ago, like, their plans for Halo. It's incredibly impressive where Halo ended up, even just at the end of Bungie's run with it. It's incredibly impressive where it ended up, and now where it is today with those original seeds that were planted by Bungie. But they didn't necessarily mean for that to happen at first. And so with this, if they have a plan that goes out 7, 8, 9, 10 years or maybe beyond, what seeds are they sowing that they're not even planning on us finding for another 6, 7 years? And they'll do it too. They aren't afraid to leave something for us for that long. And it's something that I've always appreciated, Bungie, is that the joy of the few is very important to them. And they've kind of reveled in when a small subset of fans really get enthused about a certain element of something that they create. And they've done that with, they did that with Halo, they did it with Marathon, they did it with, and I expect nothing less. In fact, I expect even more because they have the tools available to them now to really take advantage of that. So just seeing everything, the new ships, and I'm as I'm watching, and I'm like, what is that called? Oh, what is this ship? What is this? Are there more like this? Is there, what kind of class of this? If we're seeing the Fallen, well, how do the other enemies react when you're engaging them, and how do they interact with each other? And what is the overarching story? These named enemies, how does the narrative weave throughout? There's so many questions, and one of the demos that we were in, I think the more private one that we were in before all the press kind of got started, when he just turned around at the beginning of the demo, instead of running forward, he just turned around and looked at the world sprawled out, and you see the real-time reflections on the water. You see he's like, I could just jump down there if I want, or run over to those mountains, or that's, it's all playable area. And it's just like, oh, I want to go over there. And somebody linked on our forums that one of their favorite quotes came from somebody saying that they just want you to be able to be playing Destiny, wearing some awesome clothes or armor, chilling out on top of a tank in the middle of nowhere, relaxing, and still feel like you're having an awesome time at the game. And I think that's great. I think it's really going to lend itself well to this big, huge connected world with a lot of players. You're going to have to find new ways to let people enjoy themselves. It can't just be a satisfactory end game of combat success. It's got to be that emotional tie-in and the community tie-in as well. So with that, that community tie-in and the technology that's behind Destiny is interesting because the tools that they're building, and we saw this at some of the GDC talks where they were talking about being able to get through the iterative process to get from concept art to an actual playable level in record time, and talking about how they can really enrich these worlds with new content. Now, part of what goes along with that is being connected. And Destiny is a connected experience. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, there really is no offline mode for Destiny. It is an online title. And it's funny, a lot of people, really, regardless of their platform preference, were really, really interested in Destiny. And if you're interested in Destiny, then you're obviously totally okay with the being connected online. And we've seen a lot of hubbub about that lately. We see the Xbox 180, and it's going to be a very interesting thing to see now, the reaction now that Microsoft has kind of made an about face on their policies. Who would like to jump in and talk about that? And first of all, talk about what we knew and what we thought it was, and now what it is now, and whether or not you think that's going to, how do you think that's going to affect games, whether it be specifically Destiny or other games?
Well, before, Microsoft seemed very intent on doing away with the distinction between a disc-based game and a download game, or digitally delivered game. The disc was going to turn into just a different type of bandwidth, a different means of getting the ones and zeros onto your hard drive, and then once they're there, it's no different than a digital download. And of course, that was going to allow people to download their game on any console that you sign into, and allow you. They hinted at this family share program, with 10 family members, and they said, it's. I remember some executive, joking that he'd already seen the threads on NeoGAF about, hey, who wants to be in my quote unquote family? And and that was fine, and that there was going to be some sort of sharing thing. Of course, lately, there are rumors bouncing around that sharing wasn't a full sharing of the game. It was just more of a demo period, like an hour long with the game before it makes you pay. So that sort of reduces the appeal of that in retrospect. But now the big hubbub was over. Why am I explaining this? Everybody probably knows this. Over the once every 24-hour check, and they've backpedaled on that to say no, it's going to function exactly like the 360. Disc-based games will always work offline, and they've also said that digitally downloaded games will work offline. I was sort of surprised that they didn't try to hold on to at least part of their original strategy. and let the disc-based games act like the old generation, but turn the digital downloads into this completely new thing. But it's interesting times. It definitely evens up the console wars a little bit compared to last week, because it seemed like last week Sony had walked away with E3. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's true. I think it definitely felt like Sony won the conference wars. I'm not sure about the console wars, but certainly the conference wars. But Microsoft's retraction even things up, and I'm not sure that it's a good thing. So I was unhappy with the Microsoft choices because I felt like they were sort of anti-consumer. They didn't really affect me personally, but I didn't like the idea that they were, that I was never going to sell a game. I was never going to buy a used game, but the idea that somebody else could sell a used game and then it was never sellable again, that sort of bugged me. So they fixed that, but in the process they took away sort of the forward-thinking parts of the Xbox One, and maybe they were ahead of their time when they introduced it, and maybe if they had been sort of less incompetent at the presentation, that the public might have accepted what they were offering in a way that wasn't quite so negative. And 5 years from now, maybe we will accept it all. I guess I'm a little sad that we had to lose the whole concept of digital sharing, of I can play anywhere, that kind of thing. But again, that doesn't really affect me since I don't go to other people's houses and play my game. So it's not. So for me personally, neither one makes a huge difference. It's just a conceptual thing, and I wasn't happy before, and I guess I'm happier now, but not thrilled. I guess I'm happier in the sense that I think that they've acquiesced and said that the consumer is more important, and I'm sad that they've had to sort of step back on their vision for where gaming is going in the next X years.
That actually is exactly. I don't even have to talk now.
All right, Colin, what do you think?
I'm sure you would have wish you would have realized that you could have just said something like that earlier and get me to shut up. But yeah, that last bit that you said summed up my feelings on it. I'm happy that they decided, hey, you know what, the customer, if this is what you say you're wanting, we're going to get now the Xbox One that we deserve, basically. We said no, it must be this way. And they're like, okay, because, but I'm sad that that they aren't able to follow through with what I assume would have been a good plan. I don't think that Microsoft has gotten to where they are, not just as a company but also as a console maker, because they have a bunch of idiots working for them. Especially not in the engineering and the development of the Xbox platform. No, so I think it's sad that they weren't able to kind of follow through with that plan. But who knows? The fickle general public just might not have let them survive that kind of decision making yet. Like you said, it may just be an ahead of its time type thing. I would rather it go this way than be like the Dreamcast and die off. So.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. Really, the online checks really wouldn't affect me that much because I have a stable internet connection, and I hardly ever take my Xbox anywhere. The used game stuff wouldn't affect me. I buy all my games new. I don't buy used games, and I don't trade my games in. I tend to hold on to them. So the biggest impact that their DRM policy was going to have on me was driving my friends away from the Xbox. It was going to negatively affect the population. Like if all of my friends buy PlayStations now and I'm the only sucker left with an Xbox, well that does affect me. But so it's nice. I mean, I also had the ideological difficulty with what they were doing, but in a practical sense, it wasn't directly affecting me, but that indirect effect was pretty big. So I'm happy that they reversed that, so that people I know are more open to getting an Xbox, because frankly, I absolutely love the Kinect, and that's the console for me. Being able to yell at my TV when I'm watching Netflix for this long has
best.
Yeah, it's indoctrinated me to where I yell at my TV when I'm watching cable or when I'm watching a DVD. So I want it to actually listen now.
Biggie, you have any thoughts?
Oh, boy.
About anything?
Better get comfortable, guys. I don't think anything they did was forward-thinking. Steam has been doing an exceptional job of stopping used games and having you not being able to trade games for the past couple of years. And I feel like that's what Microsoft was trying to do. Steam, you don't have a 24-hour check. You license your hardware. People are talking about like the family sharing plan going away. There was actually an article that came out today with a I don't know if the guy actually is an Xbox One developer, but he was in his statement about how sad he was that they changed their policy. He mentioned that the family sharing plan was actually, here's a 60-minute demo, but we'll save your game progress. Now go buy it. And essentially Xbox has that now with arcade games. Like, you download an arcade game, you get to whatever time allotment you have, and it says, we've saved your progress. You would have earned these achievements by now. Purchase it now and you get all that stuff. So if that's true, then actually I'm kind of upset that was never brought to light, and adds to my point that this stuff should have been talked about at E3 or at their first reveal event. But instead of telling consumers what to do with disc-based content, because you can take your CDs, you can take your movies anywhere you want. There's no restrictions on that. If you're going to restrict, there has to be incentive for people to want to, go digital. And Microsoft never talked about this, but a lot of people were saying maybe they're going to have digital games, they're going to price them lower and say, like, if you buy this digital and it's locked to your account, we'll give it to you for, $15 off of retail. And that was never mentioned, so I can't trust them on that either, because they do digital right now with the 360 and it's $60. And that's silly.
I think that's more to appease the retail partners, though, because
but they're trying to fight the retail partners as well by having all these DRM things. So they have, pick a side. I don't understand.
Well, but certain retail partners, because, and I'm thinking retail partners, the big, the Walmarts, the Targets.
They all do used games
because they're not.
As well.
Yeah, but they're not taking in used games.
They're
do.
Not Best Buy, Walmart, they have trade-in programs.
Yeah, but I feel like that is, GameStop, I think, is the one where you really get the big chunk of their inventory, the big chunk of their sales, or maybe pre-owned. But like a Walmart or a Target, I still feel like, even a Best Buy, I still feel are going to be, they're the ones that are selling it new, and they're the ones that are going to be most undercut by, you can buy it retail at $60, but you can buy it digitally at $50 or $55.
Well, that's where Microsoft wanted to go there. They wanted everything to be, they're going digital. Everything's going digital.
Yeah.
Eventually. So I think by saying, like, your content becomes this digital key that's locked to you today is not going to work. Give it a couple of years. But I think my main point was that instead of telling consumers like what to do with their physical disc or telling them to check in every 24 hours to make sure that, you know, the content they've got on the consoles is the right stuff, they should find ways to make people want to get into that stuff. Like Steam, I mean, I keep using Steam as an example. That's a great platform where most PC gamers get their games from Steam. It's locked to your account. You can't trade it. The money goes straight to the publishers. Eventually, someone's going to have to say to retailers that it's not working. And I don't think the way to do it is to tell consumers to deal with these policies. I mean, that's how I feel.
Well, you're wrong. And so that concludes our show. No. No, I actually don't disagree, and I think you raise a lot of really good points. I don't know. There are definitely aspects of all of it that really could be, you know, some of it is a numbers interpretation. Some of it also, to be quite honest, is one of these promises of a better future. You know, would had they continued on that path, would that have, you know, 1-to-1 translated into within a year we're going to start seeing cheaper digital games and giant Steam type sales on stuff? You know, I mean, I think if maybe that was guaranteed to be true, maybe that would be different. But you know, there's not a precedent for that, at least on the console side, and there's no guarantee that we were going to see that. And I do think that your examples of Steam being kind of a hallmark of digital distribution is spot on. But let's also remember that Steam didn't start out exactly as it is now, and it has been honed and adjusted. And a lot of people didn't think that Steam was a good idea when it started either. So it's definitely, you know, as more things come to light, if the family sharing plan was really just a demo type thing, then that removes one of the things that I would have thought was coolest about it. So that certainly puts me more back in, you know, in the camp where, okay, well, I'm glad maybe they're going this way. But
I think maybe it was Duncan who said that I'm sad to see some of these things go away, like having the console kind of be this connected experience. I mean, if you think about it, the games are connected anyway. Titanfall, you have to be online. Destiny, you have to be online. So the games are really mandating that the future is always online. I think that Microsoft can still have these same policies, but they don't have to shove it down your throat. They can say, like, if you buy digital, you have the family sharing plan. You have this one-time trade with someone. You get all these kind of perks and benefits, you know, at the expense of being able to sell it and trade it. And I think they should still offer that. I'm a little confused as to why they scrapped all of that.
Why it has to be an all or nothing.
Yeah.
I think that's mostly a messaging thing, a PR thing for now. Like they're switching everything to enable offline play and act like the 360 now, just so that there's no reason for people to point and say, well, in this instance, you're still shutting people out every 24 hours. Mm-hmm. But they have been very adamant about saying, you know, this can change again in the future. I mean, they said that, you know, at the very start when they first announced the
boy, they weren't joking.
yeah. And I think they've proven that, you know, they're willing to do a 180 and change their policy. So I could see this being like they just want to make sure there's absolutely no possible negative press coming out of this now. No perceived downside, and then maybe a year or years down the road they'll be able to say, okay, well now digital downloads, you know, you can't play offline, but you do get these benefits, and people will already have consoles, and there won't be as large of an uproar, especially if they keep disc-based games working offline. I imagine the difficulty in switching that halfway through the life of a console is much greater. Can they really say, okay, starting now, if you buy a disc-based game, you won't be able to play it offline? That's a little too confusing.
Do you guys think that they announced this quick enough to get out of the hole that had started to be dug with pre-order sales?
I'd just like to point out one thing, though. People are going to find out sooner than later that you have to be online. Like, again, Destiny and Titanfall, you have to be online.
Yeah, and that's platform regardless.
And I think it's better they find out in that way, like saying, here's a game I want to play and I have to always be online. It makes sense for them to do it.
No one has a problem with that with WoW.
Yeah, but I'm saying
it's
once you start
people
having...
With the 24-hour check, people were like, well, how am I going to be able to do a LAN party?
Yeah.
And my question was, what game are you going to have a LAN party for? Because it looks like most of these new ones aren't going to support that at all. It's going to, even if it's got some sort of multiplayer component, they're going to try and tie it into the cloud somehow.
Is Claude still
Yeah.
there?
How are those StarCraft 2 LAN parties coming?
I've done my share of LAN parties, and I can't remember the last one where we didn't spend at least some of every 24-hour period online as a group. So, it's not that big a deal. I totally understand, if power goes out for 2 weeks, the idea that you're stuck in a house
phone.
and you can't get out and the only thing you've got is your console and yet that's bricked. That's a bad thing. I get that. But for the
if your
vast
power's out, you're probably going to have trouble playing.
So I have a generator. So my internet could be out, but the house is powered and I'm stuck and I can't. There's 4 feet of snow on the ground, so I can't walk out the door. What can I do? I can play my video games. Nope, I can't because my console's bricked. That would be annoying.
Fortunately, there's a system for you. It's the Xbox 360.
Thanks, Don.
It's called
Appreciate
the Nintendo 3DS.
I think they could have kept all of their policies and just said disc-based games are disc-based games. They don't turn into digital.
I cannot understand why that's not the case.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's been a nightmare for them.
So where does everybody stand sort of now? Because I know last week a lot of people were really eyeing the PlayStation 4. I don't know, Colin.
It's unchanged with me.
You're going to get both no matter what.
I'm going to get both no matter what. But my focus is on the 360, the 180. My focus is on the Xbox. That's still where my loyalty is a bad way to put it. More of like that's where all of my friends are. That's where the games that I want to play are.
That makes sense. It's like if someone has all Apple products, they're going to buy an iPhone because it works in that ecosystem.
Yeah, and so I mean, I am keeping an eye out for if there is I'm screwed if they do like a Destiny themed console. What I'm hoping is that they do a Destiny themed PS4 because PlayStation really wants to do that. And I would imagine if they're going to do one and not the other, it would probably be a PlayStation, just because of the way that everything is going. Because I'm going to have it, and that's going to be a problem. So maybe I'll just get an Xbox. I'll get a 180, and I'll get a Destiny PS4, and then I'll just get a Halo 5 or whatever it is, 180 when that comes out. We'll see. But it doesn't change that much for me. But I'm hoping that it does sway some people back over towards Xbox because I want friends to play with.
Neither console is out for another 4 months at least, and just the idea that I understand that the internet is up in arms and has decided for sure, but they'll decide for sure something else tomorrow. So until the end of October, when we're a few weeks away, I think sort of saying one or the other is dead is silly. I think that they certainly Microsoft put themselves back in the game by listening to fans and doing what people were complaining about. For me personally, none of it matters. I'm not going to buy one until well, basically until Destiny comes out.
We do have a long way. Yeah, we do have a long way to go until launch, and I sort of feel I have the hope that it's only going to get better for gamers as this console war continues to heat up. I mean, is Sony going to
talk about competition breeding excellence?
Is Sony going to fire back at Microsoft and say, okay, well, now the PlayStation 4 also
makes cupcakes?
It comes with this benefit. The cotton candy machine add-on is free.
Damn,
but yeah. I mean, for me personally, I'll probably get one at launch, and I'm, I said before, I love the Kinect. I don't mind the extra, $100 for the Kinect.
I think the extra cost is such a.
Well,
this sounds like super elitist, but I'm like, how long do you own your console? Like that extra $100 over the life of the console, and yes, I know you pay for it up front, but over the life of the console is really not.
Yeah, but you know what? Bad. You're the guy who just said, I'm going to buy both of them at launch, consoles. And then when they come out with custom Destiny ones, I'm going to buy both of those too. So,
Claude, I think you should only talk when whatever you say supports my theories, and not when they go against them.
You're already hopeless. I don't know. For me, it's the Kinect. I like the Kinect, so that sort of makes the extra $100 negligible. So then it comes down to, okay, the PlayStation 4 has better hardware. But I think the Xbox has better exclusives, at least coming in the near term. Titanfall.
And I still just like the infrastructure of Xbox Live better than PSN.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the I spoke to some developer somewhere. I'm betting it's a Bungie guy, but I can't remember now. Who said, "I can't believe Microsoft didn't push the Kinect 2 on this because." It is so much better than the Kinect.
Oh, it was Luke with Bungie.
Oh,
yeah,
you're
right.
Timmons.
Luke Timmons. Yeah.
And so I just set up a Kinect for the first time, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, so my son could play Dance Central 3. I don't want to yell at
his son, quotey fingers.
Quotey fingers. I don't have an interest in yelling at my television. I haven't seen
just
a lot
us.
of features that I need personally, but I read about the incredible things people do with the Kinect, and the new one that's coming out is much better. So by the time I get around to buying an Xbox One, if I get around to buying an Xbox One, I'm guessing there'll be things that make me want that Kinect, and I won't be annoyed that it's always on and I can't put a hood over its head or whatever. Yeah.
I think an important thing for me on the Kinect, and I enjoy my Kinect, and I've had it for a couple years now, and I think one of the things that I really like in regards to the new one is you have a guaranteed install base. So developers don't have to look at it as a gimmicky type thing because they can it's not seen as much of a risk. With the 360, it's a bigger risk to spend a lot of time developing for something that maybe only a small subset of your users have. Whereas
when it first came out,
you
had like that Star Wars game. There was nothing worth having a Kinect for.
Yeah, I mean, now if you have an X1, they know that you have to have a Kinect hooked up to it. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more features in it that cater to the core audience. I used the Kinect playing Mass Effect 3. I would be washing dishes in the other room on a particularly long dialogue sequence, and I would just be yelling the dialogue options and having a conversation with the game. I loved playing Halo Anniversary and saying, analyze and scan. I also loved yelling lightning bolt when someone else was playing, and having them throw a thunder grenade. But yeah. So I think it's going to be cool. We're going to see a lot of changes just because everybody has one, and I think that's a good thing for developers to bank on when they're using it. Anybody else have anything they wanted to add regarding the big shocker that we spent so long on the Xbox policies?
That's
a big deal.
What?
I know Colin can talk about this, about the wanting to see Microsoft support indie games more.
I mean, that's the only. Obviously, the $100 price difference is a big deal to a lot of people, excluding Jeff. But I actually don't think the indie thing is a big deal to a lot of people. I think that's mostly hardcore people that even care about that. But I'd like to see Microsoft. There, you have these kind of stories of independent developers having a hard time. Like Jonathan Blow has been very outspoken about how much he didn't like the process of publishing on arcade or indie. I'd like to see Microsoft adopt a self-publishing system, and I mean, just all the stories of people, indie developers saying like Sony's been coming to us and asking us what we need. Obviously, Sony's not in a position where they can make demands. They need to win people back over after last generation. But yeah, that's a big selling point for me. Even if I don't end up playing PlayStation 4 as much as an Xbox, if I do get both, which I'm pretty sure I will, maybe not at launch, but I still want to get a PlayStation 4 just to support that business model. And I think Microsoft should, they should do the same.
Well, and I think that's an important thing too. I mean, the reason why I have a PS3 is to support developers that make games I want to play. For example, I am a huge fan of the Uncharted series, and I can't get that on Xbox, so I got a PlayStation. And it was less about just having to have the PlayStation. Then I wanted to make sure that I was not missing out on the experiences that people were crafting. And that'll be why I get a PS4 as well. I'll want the Uncharted's and the Gran Turismos and and the stuff that is going to be specifically for that platform. Just like I won't not get Xbox because I'm not going to not play the next Halo or not play the next Forza.
So,
because that's why I game, is to play the games that I want, so that's, to me, it's like that's where if your heart lies with those games, that's absolutely what you should do.
That's the good thing about this generation, is that since both systems are the same architecture, you're literally buying a PlayStation for Naughty Dog, and you're literally buying an Xbox for 343.
Yeah.
Almost every other game is going to be the same on both, and that was not true of last generation. So you really can't go wrong with whatever you buy.
Yeah, I agree. So guys, just, round the table real quick, just final thoughts on the week that was at E3. I know personally I really enjoyed getting to spend time with you guys specifically, and Biggie actually specifically, because I've spent time with both Duncan and Claude, whether they liked it or not, beforehand. But it was really awesome to kind of get to know Biggie more in person. He also drove us around a lot, which was super cool of him. But really, yeah, just
right
being there with
road.
Being there with the people was the big thing with me. It was wonderful to see people like people at 343, Jessica and David and Bonnie and Frank and Che and and everybody at Bungie. Cannot thank them enough for just the incredible grace and hospitality that they showed us as community members and I guess liaisons in a way. And ambassadors for what they're doing, evangelists maybe, and really thank them. Everybody at Bungie was super, almost honored to have us there, was the impression that we got. And I can't thank them enough for that experience. Just on a basic level, when they greeted you, they're like, "Oh, thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for what you do." It's like, screw that, thank you guys. I mean, that was really, really cool. Claude, week that was.
That was about it.
He's got to wake up. Hold on.
You covered it. That's
Awesome.
Good.
Good. So that's good. Well, so Claude has said everything I needed to say in one section of the show, and I said everything Claude needed to say in the other section. Somewhere Hedge is making a Photoshop.
Oh my God.
Everything the light touches. Duncan.
Last week was a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was neat hanging out with the Bungie crew, but also hanging out with some of the other DBO members and other people from the Bungie community that we ran into and got to hang out with. That got me really excited for PAX when I know we're just going to see gobs of people we know.
Lars Cup 2013.
Yeah, really.
More Lars this time.
But
see if we can get Lars from Bungie in there.
E3 was cool. It made me sort of rethink my annual convention strategy. I might have to drop PAX East and try and replace that with E3, which isn't exactly 1-to-1, but it was pretty neat.
Biggie?
What are we talking about?
What kind of pizza?
The
oh, wait, no.
Electronics Entertainment Expo, as you may know,
EQ.
is a yearly trip.
Right. No, I mean, obviously we went there for the games, but spent most of the time socializing with either other community members, Bungie, 343, and every event I go to, that's the biggest takeaway for me, is hanging out with all the people that have similar interests as me, and that I don't get to see, year round. I'd also like to point out that we covered one game, and it was the most exhausting experience I've had in a while.
Yes.
So I'd like to applaud all those people that are working there, showing off their game, and then all the journalists that have to cover the entire event, because, geez, that's insane. But yeah,
they have secret internet connections somewhere that we don't know about.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's definitely some of that going on.
Because, I spent all 3 days trying to cover one game, and I still feel like, oh man, I wish I could have done this too and that, but man.
Well, and we're still catching up with stuff that we did do.
yeah.
I mean, it is. That's a great way to put it, Biggie. Applauding both sides of that, both the journalist end as well as the people who are doing the same presentation 7,000 times. I mean, I get a taste
not
of that.
Getting word of it. That's amazing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I understand that. My day job is a lot of that, where I have to do something for maybe 500 different times over the course of something. And the thing is, you always have to be on, because you have done it 500 times, but the people you're doing it for have seen it once. It's the first time that they're seeing it, and man, that was never truer than the way that they were just on it for day after day after day of the conference.
I don't know how many times Josh Hamrick had to say space magic, but every time I saw him say it, it was the greatest thing.
Yeah, he went to
every time.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like
guys.
I'm complaining though, because it was worth it and it was fun, but it was kind of eye opening.
Yeah, eye-opening to say the least. Well, guys, that is going to wrap us up. Went a little longer than we probably would have anticipated, but hey, that's what season premieres do. So thank you guys so much for joining us for the real episode 1 of Starside Lounge. For NCSU Duncan, Claude Errera, and Mr. Master Biggie, I am GrimBrother One. Catch us on Destiny.Bungie.Org and Facebook and the tweeters and all over social media. By the time episode 2 comes back, who knows what other websites. Maybe we'll have a Vine or something. Actually, we won't need a Vine because Instagram does video now.
No, I actually have a Vine ready to go, but I don't know if I want to share it. And it's of one of you three.
Oh dear.
Oh.
That can't be good.
You definitely don't want to share it.
You probably don't want to. I like
Claude
how all
got
of us
the
are
idea
vying
of who
not
it
to
is.
share it just in case it's us. But if we knew it was
Yeah.
one of the other guys, we'd lobby hardcore that it got put
No.
up.
I would still say don't share it.
Yeah, don't share it.
It's certainly of someone doing really well as far as assault. I almost called it something else.
Oh, I already know who it
It's
is.
not me.
All right, guys. Well, again, for everybody here, I'm Grim, and this is DBO's Starside Lounge. Thanks for listening.
Receiving incoming transmission.